Hello, everyone, and welcome to our ESPN studios here in London for yet another January transfer window deadline day. I'm Alexis Nunes, and with me, I've got a whole host of our journalists who are all over the place, from London to Manchester to Barcelona to Spain, because we're just going to be across it all. But here we've got Julien Laurens and Gabriele Marcotti. I like saying his full name, or Gab and Jules, of course. I guess we could call you guys that because that's what you are. But another deadline day, guys. We're across it. We're going to be counting down to the final minute of this hour. We're going to talk, of course, about some of the transfers that we have seen already confirmed, like Georginio leaving Chelsea to Arsenal. Not the first time someone's left West London to go to North London. Some other ones we have our eyes on, for example, Sabitzer to Man United, Pedro Porro to Spurs, and Enzo Fernandez to Chelsea. Oh, Chelsea splashing cash like Chelsea do. So let's start there, guys. Let's talk about Chelsea. And of course, first, the fact that Georginio and Chelsea are no more. The Champions League winner, the Euro winner. He's now gone to North London, Arsenal. Just Gab, details on that deal.
I think it's a tremendous deal for Chelsea, because you're talking about somebody who's going to be a free agent in 6 months. Somebody who, is the wrong side of 30, so clearly not going to be a central part of the club's plans going forward. You get his wages off the books. You get 10 million as opposed to 0 this summer. I think from Arsenal's perspective, it's a good deal too if he buys you some insurance in midfield, right?
Yeah.
Uncertainty, perhaps. Thomas Partey, Elneny's been injured. He comes back, right? He's your depth off the bench. Lokonga's now moved on. So he brings you that extra body. Somebody, by the way, who, remember when yonks ago, before he even came to Chelsea, he was going to sign for Manchester City. We're led to believe Arteta was one of the big Georginio proponents. So in that sense, he fits in. He's different from Partey and Xhaka in midfield. And he's very motivated. He knows the Premier League. So I think probably a better deal for Chelsea, but I think a solid deal for Arsenal.
Jules, what about you? Because we're definitely going to talk about Chelsea, about Arsenal a lot more later. I know you're quite close there to the North London crew. But for Chelsea now, where does this leave them now? Because I feel like we've seen some of the reaction from the Chelsea fans as well. We know that Arsenal fans seem to be quite excited about this one. But Chelsea fans, they're not quite sure what more they could have gotten from Georginio. But they don't seem 100% happy to see him go, because he does have experience, doesn't he?
Yeah, it depends who you replace him with, really. And me and Gab thought that letting Georginio go to a direct opponent, really, not for the title this season, but overall for the top 6, top 4 in England, it was because they knew that Enzo was coming to kind of replace, certainly in terms of one out, one in the squad. If you don't sign Enzo and you're left with Conte still out injured until probably the end of February, so just Kovacic, basically Gallagher, who they kept at the club when he had offers to leave. And so no Georginio anymore. Loftus-Cheek is still injured.
Zakaria.
You've got Zakaria, who did well, to be fair, in recent games, but he's still not, maybe you're a bit short in midfield. And certainly I think this is maybe the feeling among Chelsea fans. If Enzo signs, I think he's,
perfect.
Sorts everything out. But if not, you would have lost a leader in your dressing room, because that's what Georgie was. Very experienced, as you said, with winning mentality. And someone who could still have done a good job for you, even if he was obviously out of contract.
And I think what you said, they're a leader and a winner. We mentioned that before, but
you want to remind them that Italy won the Euros.
I just want to point out.
Behave. Behave.
I know, but I think this comes into it, right?
Yeah.
Arsenal 1 to 11, other than Odegaard as a passenger, who's actually won anything of note at Arsenal? Thomas Partey, and then beyond that, there may be somebody, Xhaka, maybe won till he's a kid.
Zinchenko, but they're new at the club.
Those two guys, and one of them's injured. So here you get somebody who, I believe won the Euros, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe the Champions League too.
The Champions League too. He's won for club and country, so that brings something there. But to Jules's point then, Gab, what do you think? Do you feel like this leaves Chelsea a bit vulnerable in the midfield area?
They're short on numbers there, but I think a lot of it's going to depend on what Graham Potter wants to do. I have no idea what's going through his mind. We've seen Mount play deeper. Maybe that's a possibility. His old club, Brighton, this past weekend, they played with a double pivot in midfield of Pascal Gross and Alexis McAllister, 2 attacking midfielders. Maybe that's the blueprint. I don't know. I really struggle to see the greater vision in what Chelsea are doing. other than accumulating assets, accumulating pieces. I don't see how they fit together. But yes, well, you have to put your faith in Graham Potter, the people in recruitment he's working with, some of which, of course, he's worked with before, like Winstanley at Brighton, and hope that there's a plan that comes together. Certainly, viewed from the outside, it does feel a little bit to me like you're assembling Panini stickers.
Yeah, well, of course, Georginio, as we said, confirmed that he has left Chelsea and he is officially now an Arsenal player. So this would be the perfect time probably for Chelsea to announce Enzo Fernandez. This is one that everyone's excited for. Why not? What a talented young player, and he's already a world champion too. We are actually just refreshing all the pages to see what the latest is. Guys, Jules, let's start with you. What are you hearing? What's the latest?
Well, I mean, the latest I got before coming in was that the two clubs were still negotiating. There's still no full agreement. He's ready. He wants to come to Chelsea. His medical is not done. Maybe unlike what some reports were saying, but he's in Portugal, ready to do it in Portugal to gain some time, so he doesn't have to fly over here and do it here.
And sorry, just on the medical, for those who might not get this, it's not like Chelsea are going to wait for the medical to do this. They can agree a deal as long as they insert the paperwork into the TMS, start the process before the deadline.
Paperwork
it's all
has
done.
Collapsed before.
Well, it's all but it's all done pending the medical the next day, right?
Exactly. So that's not the most important.
That's
really.
not.
Gab is right. The most important is to find an agreement with Benfica. It seems that the structure of the deal is still the problem. It's not so much a release clause anymore of 130 million euros. It's more how you pay. I think Benfica, like all release clauses, would want it all in one installment, and this is what you have to pay. Usually, the release clause. PSG paid 222 million for Neymar in one check. You usually don't.
But not
pay.
Everyone's PSG.
No. But you know what I mean. You don't usually pay in installment like you do for a normal transfer. But that's what Chelsea ideally would like to do. So there's still time, an hour. I would think there's still enough time to do the deal, and certainly at Chelsea they're still quite positive. But the clock is ticking.
And I want to stress if it is imperative for Chelsea, or if they want to see it to their advantage to pay in installments. This is not a financial fair play thing.
Yeah.
Because the minute he becomes a Chelsea player, the full size of the transfer goes onto their books and starts being amortized over the life of the contract.
Yeah,
so
whether it's in one payment or five.
That makes no difference whatsoever. It's purely, if this is the holdup, it's purely a cash flow issue from Chelsea's part.
And I mean, of course, under Roman Abramovich, we got used to seeing Chelsea splash cash, and that seems to be the case now, even though they're under new ownership. Because just what do you think of the money then, or the price tag? Because we're always going to discuss price tags when it comes to these players. Now being linked with Enzo Fernandez, because it's about 10 times more than what Benfica paid for him, and it wasn't that long ago. Granted, yes, we know after the World Cup his stake went up, but what do you guys think of it?
I mean, you can do the financial fair play side because people are asking how can they spend so much with financial fair play rules. So Gab can do that. Right now, they have the money. They need to shuffle the squad. Let's put it that way. It's a lot of players for a lot of money. Maybe too many players. Let's not forget that, for example, if Enzo signed, there will be 7 signings in January. You can only register 3 in the Champions League for the knockout stages. So amongst the Joao Felix and Mudryk and Badiashile, Andre Santos, Fofana, I mean, and Enzo, all of them, only 3 could play in the Champions League knockout. So 4 of those 7 new signings will have to stay home and not be involved in Europe, which is a lot when you spend that much money. So
I think it's not good news for Joao Felix if it is those 4.
Yeah,
I would assume Badiashile has to be there, if only because he's fit.
And he's starting in the league.
And Mudryk, you need that. Yeah, I mean, he's your big star.
And Enzo too. I guess right there will be the 3, but that means no Joao Felix in the Champions League.
Oh, poor Joao Felix. Can't catch a break. And I love him. Great guy. Great guy. Anyways, we're going to give Gab and Jules a little bit of a break because it's time to focus on the Manchester clubs, Manchester United and Manchester City. Of course, so we're going to go to our 2 top boys in Manchester, Rob Dawson and Mark Ogden. Guys, let me start with you, Rob, of course. You got a smile on your face there. I'm wondering if it's because you can tell us some news of Marcel Sabitzer hopefully coming to Manchester United. This, of course, would be some, I guess, really good and needed news for Manchester United fans after the horrible news about Christian Eriksen looking to probably be out with an ankle injury for the rest of the season, or at least until late April, early May. So, Rob, what's the latest for this one, Sabitzer United?
Yeah, I mean, it's one that's going to get done. It's just a matter of time now. He's been given permission to fly to Manchester to undergo a medical. As you say, there was bad news this morning with Christian Eriksen's injury. And then the day is going to end up with good news for Man United fans that United have managed to bring in a replacement with Marcel Sabitzer. He's going to sign a deal on loan until the end of the season. And, in terms of these deadline day deals, they're always very hard to do. It's very, very hard to find the right player. But I think Man United fans, when they wake up tomorrow, will be quite pleased that they've managed to get a player in to compensate for the loss of Eriksen.
Augie, let me go to you for this one because not much gets you excited, but I want to know if this one would get you excited from what you're seeing there or feeling there in Manchester. Of course, how do you see him fitting in? Because as we were saying after the Christian Eriksen news, this would be an absolutely welcome signing.
Yeah, I think United have done really well today, considering that Eriksen, that it's a real blow, like Rob says, to lose Eriksen till end of April, beginning of May. I mean, that's pretty much the rest of the season. So they had to get somebody in because don't forget they've lost Donny van de Beek, who didn't play many games, but he's out for the season as well. So the options that they've got are limited. So to get a player of Sabitzer's quality and experience in, because look, he's not at the best of times at Bayern since he arrived from Leipzig, but he was a really, really outstanding player at Leipzig. And I think a lot of United fans will remember how he played in a Champions League win for Leipzig over United about 18 months to 2 years ago. So, he's done okay at Bayern, but he's not been the success that he thought he'd be, but he's the top player. So I think United have done really well. And obviously this kind of gives a nod towards how things have changed at Old Trafford in the last 12 months, the recruitment side of it, which is a lot more streamlined now. Ed Woodward's gone. It's basically left to John Murtagh to run. And I think the fact that they had a deal for Sabitzer done so quickly suggests that they had a lot of targets, in place and ready to go if needed be. So in the past, we've seen United mess around and stumble around in the transfer deadline day. But I think with Sabitzer, they've got a player that can be a real addition to the midfield. So I think, if he's fit and ready to play, a great addition because they really will miss Eriksen. But I think the one thing that Sabitzer will give, I think he give a bit more energy than Eriksen. I think Eriksen has had a great season, but he does tire in games towards the end of games. And I think in recent weeks, we've seen that he's, his fitness levels aren't quite what they were, and that is understandable considering that the problems that he's had. But I think Sabitzer brings a little bit more energy to the team as well. So in many ways, it's a good sign for United, and I think they should be really happy with the business they've done.
And Augie, just sticking with you because I understand that you have a bit of a rant to go on.
Yeah.
You have a little bone to pick with Andy Carroll, which I'm sure everybody at Manchester United does after that FA Cup clash with Reading that now has ultimately doomed Christian Eriksen at least to the end of the season.
Yeah, it's not just Andy Carroll, it's Fabinho as well. I just think at the weekend we saw two horrendous tackles on, first of all, Andy Carroll on Eriksen, which didn't even get, I don't think he got a yellow card. And then we saw Fabinho and Evan Ferguson at Brighton. Horrendous tackle right to the back of Ferguson, above the ankle, back at the Achilles. And my issue here is that we spend a lot of time, everybody was obsessing over VAR and these tight offside decisions. We spend 3 or 4 minutes analysing the lines and seeing if it's offside. Decisions that are important in the game because they decide a goal or not. But these injuries are potentially career-threatening. And it's, in Eriksen's case, it could be season-ending. So why on earth are the VARs letting these tackles go? Two excellent players. Eriksen might miss the rest of the season, and Ferguson, hopefully it's not as bad as Eriksen's, but had Fabinho stayed on the pitch. Now, I know that the referees, PGML, have admitted that it was a mistake not to send Fabinho off, but I think from this weekend on, we'll see a clamping down on this sort of tackle because two really, really high-profile tackles that went unpunished, and we've seen two top players or two very good players injured as a result of it. So I think forget about obsessing over offside lines. Let's focus on the real issues of making sure that players don't get fouled and don't get such bad injuries.
Rob, do you kind of agree with the same thing that Augie's saying there? Because it definitely didn't make for pretty viewing at the weekend.
No, it didn't. And actually, Erik ten Hag's done a press conference today to preview the Nottingham Forest game tomorrow. And there'll be quotes coming out in about 15 minutes where he shows how unhappy he is with that challenge. As Mark said, Andy Carroll did get sent off, but didn't even get booked for that challenge. And it was the worst one of the three, really. And United are left with one of their key players, a player who's been used more often than any other player by Erik ten Hag this season. And United are now without him for the best part of 3 months. And it's a massive blow. And, Erik ten Hag speaking today, you could tell in the tone of his voice that he was particularly unhappy. He felt that it should have been punished at the time. I think he's actually expecting an apology from Andy Carroll and Reading at some point because it was that bad a challenge.
Yeah, well, at least I suppose this news once Sabitzer is officially confirmed. As you said, it's just a matter of time. That will definitely give Manchester United fans something to celebrate after that horrible injury to Christian Eriksen. Let's talk about the blue side of Manchester now. There have been some outgoings. Joao Cancelo leaving City on loan to Bayern Munich. Rob, let me go to you first on this one. What's the deal there? Because everyone's wondering if something happened behind the scenes there.
Yeah, and it did. Joao Cancelo's relationship has broken down with Pep Guardiola. I know that Joao Cancelo gave an interview after he signed for Bayern and said that there was nothing to do with the relationship with Pep, and it was simply because he wanted more games. Well, that is true, but there was also a breakdown with his relationship with Pep Guardiola around that anyway, that he was unhappy that he wasn't being played as much as he thought he should have done, particularly after the World Cup. He didn't have a great World Cup. He was dropped by Portugal during the tournament. He came back. He thought he was going to play regular at City, as he has done for the last 2.5 years, and he just didn't get the games that he thought he was going to. Pep Guardiola has seen the likes of Rico Lewis emerge as a viable option at fullback. He's been happy with how Nathan Ake has played at left back, and has decided that they could afford to lose Joao Cancelo. But ultimately, this is a guy that was a key part of 2 title-winning teams, and he was named in the Premier League team of the year twice. So he's obviously still a quality player. City aren't in the business of just letting players go for no reason. So I think it's fairly obvious that there's something happened behind the scenes, and that's why Joao Cancelo is now at Bayern Munich. But we've seen time and time again with Pep Guardiola that he just doesn't have players in his squad who don't want to be there. We saw it with Raheem Sterling when he was allowed to go to Chelsea, with Gabriel Jesus and Zinchenko that were allowed to go to Arsenal in the summer. Once a player's decided that he doesn't want to be at City anymore, it's not a case that City and Pep Guardiola tried to convince him to stay. It's that they're out the door as quickly as possible. And I think maybe the speed of this move to Bayern Munich for Joao Cancelo has caught people by surprise a little bit. But once you know a little bit about how Pep Guardiola works and his managerial style, it's really not that big a surprise, I suppose.
And then, Augie, how much does this actually help Bayern Munich? Because yes, Bayern are still at the top of the Bundesliga, only by a point in a season that we're seeing Bayern not be the dominant Bayern that we have been used to. So what can Cancelo offer them? Does he at least answer some of the questions that some of their fans may be asking?
Well, it's like Rob said, he didn't have a great World Cup. So if you see the Joao Cancelo that had 2 fantastic seasons at City and got in the team of the year, then Bayern have got a great sign. He'll make a big difference. But if it's the Cancelo that's played this season who struggled for form, then Bayern are getting a player that might take a while to get to his best. So it's a very tight race in the Bundesliga. I think the top 4 are separated by 2 or 3 points, which is great. For a change, it's usually 10, 15 points that Bayern are clear by now. So it's good that Bayern are being tested. And Cancelo, he is a great player, and I think on the face of it, a lot of City fans will be surprised that he's gone because he's one of their more versatile players. He can play on both sides of defence, but he's made a great move to Bayern. He can win a title at Bayern. He can win a Champions League at Bayern. And I think as Rob was saying, that he's not happy about not playing games at City. Now he's not the only one. Kyle Walker hasn't played many games. Phil Foden isn't playing enough games. You could argue that Jack Grealish is in the same boat as well. And this is what happens when you get a club like City with so many good players that Pep Guardiola can't accommodate them all. I think there's the suggestion that Bernardo Silva might have left the club today, and that didn't happen. But Bernardo's been, I won't say he's been agitating for a move for about 2 or 3 years, but he's always a player that is linked with the move in a window, and he has been for the last 3 or 4 windows because he doesn't feel he plays enough games. So Guardiola will always get his way with the club. Like Sterling went last year. If a player wants to leave and Pep wants him out, he goes. The Man City owners will back Pep Guardiola 100%. But it does kind of suggest that all is not well at Man City in the sense that he's very demanding of his players. We know that. We know that in the past that when he left Barcelona, a lot of the Barcelona players felt that the time had come for Pep to go because he's on their case non-stop. And City have had 7 years of it now. So it'll be interesting to see how we go on from here, whether Cancelo is a one-off or if it's the start of a trend of City players thinking that, it's time to move on because I'm not playing enough games and I don't want to be playing at this incredible intensity and training in this incredible intensity on Guardiola every day of the week because it can be draining, especially for a player that's won medals. If you're a player that wants to go to a club to win things, you'll accept the hardship of playing for Pep. If you've won things already and you're kind of on that treadmill of success, they might just have had enough of it. And it'll be interesting to see how many more City players follow Cancelo at the club in the next few months.
All right, well, that's the latest with the Manchester clubs there. Of course, we'll continue tracking them. If anything else comes in, we'll definitely touch base with you guys in a bit. But for the moment, we can't really talk about Manchester United or any transfer window or just any football really without mentioning the man Cristiano Ronaldo. Yes, he's no longer here in the UK. He's in Saudi Arabia, but that still has not stopped the rumors from swirling that maybe he's just not 100% done with European club football just yet. Yes, that conversation has reared its head once again this week. So we got Gab and Jules to try and get to the bottom of it.
This was back on Thursday night, but Al Nassr lost to Al Ittihad 3-1 in the Saudi Super Cup. Cristiano Ronaldo did not score, and his coach Rudy Garcia says that he will return to Europe before the end of his career. Anything to read into that, Gab?
I don't think so, but well, for Rudy, the juxtaposition. So, like, Cristiano comes, he plays 2 games, he hasn't scored yet. You just lost. Probably not the time to say, maybe he'll go back to Europe before he retires. It's likely. I mean, he's getting older.
But
he's going to come back as a 40-year-old. I don't know, but why pour lighter fluid on a potential fire that wasn't there before, right?
Yeah.
So, no, I don't think there's much to read into it. I think Rudy might want to take that one back if he could.
All right, there we go. Some Cristiano Ronaldo talk just in time for me to welcome in Tom Hamilton. We're going to be talking Liverpool. Mark Ogden is still here with us as well. But first, our Julien Laurens, who's gone off to do one of his 3 million shows that he always does, has confirmed that Hakim Ziyech is indeed going to go to PSG. On loan with no option to buy is what he's telling us just now. We're going to get him back in the room to explain it all. So don't go anywhere for that one. But like I said, let's talk Liverpool because, Tom, what a time for Liverpool. What a time for Liverpool. Times are hard, I would say. They're being dumped out of, the cups, which is rough to see because I think that was their best chance of silverware, isn't it? Yes, they still have the Champions League coming, but that's up against Real Madrid, who also have their problems, but it's Real Madrid. And they only have Cody Gakpo to show for it. Now, I say only Cody Gakpo, but after the World Cup, everyone got excited for him. But thoughts on if he's enough to solve the problems that Jurgen is having right now?
I think it's a really interesting time for Liverpool. I think Gakpo is clearly one of these signings where they're looking towards the next 3, 4, 5 years. If you're looking at the immediate issues, growing injuries here, there and everywhere, midfield definitely needs reinforcements, long-term planning there. They've been linked with a host of impressive names, probably looking ahead to the summer, like Jude Bellingham. I imagine also Caicedo, if he's back on the market. I'll have a look there. But if you remember a couple of seasons ago when they had that huge injury crisis in defence, what they did was they made short-term signings. They signed, I think it was Ben Davies, and then they also signed Kabak on loan. And this was the sort of thing they did whereby it wasn't panic buying. They're looking at the long-term picture, and I think they're probably trying to do the same thing again. You can imagine they need reinforcements in midfield. Oxlade-Chamberlain stays. His contract's up in the summer. He could be maybe being one to have moved on this transfer window, but I think they're trying to keep it as calm as possible, but it's going to be a turbulent couple of months ahead and a season whereby falling well short of their expectations. Now,
I mean, when we talk about rebuilds, Liverpool really in recent times have done it perfectly. We know the massive rebuild, but one thing about that rebuild is that it took time that I think after tasting all the success that they have tasted and winning pretty much everything there was to win in the last couple of years is probably something that Liverpool fans don't want to go through again. So what are you hearing about the plan there at Liverpool? Is the main stuff to happen in the summer if Cody Gakpo is all we're expecting now?
I think so. And also, but there's a lot of uncertainty behind the scenes with the ownership situation.
Yep.
And whether they're looking for investment, looking to try and move the club on there. Klopp's there for another couple of seasons. So I think it's fair to say that he won't be going anywhere anytime soon. But it's certainly something whereby if you're looking at Liverpool's team at the moment, you're looking at the midfield and thinking that really does need reinforcement. Gakpo, once they get these forwards back, the likes of Diego Jota, the likes of Luis Diaz, then suddenly you've got a completely transformed front line. Firmino out of contract in the summer again. But equally, I think it's something they've had a lot of upheaval, like Michael Edwards, sporting director, leaving as well. It's a time whereby they need stability. And I think that's what they'll be looking to bring to the club while looking to sort of evolution instead of revolution over the summer.
All right, well, let's go to Mark Ogden as well, who actually doesn't live too far from Liverpool himself. So I'm sure you can hear probably the bit of panic, Augie, that Liverpool fans have been having in recent times. Just touching on that rebuild and the fact that it is only Cody Gakpo that they have to show for now to kind of settle some of the nerves for the rest of the season. Just your thoughts on probably what their plan was, what it should be, or what we should expect from them.
Well, first of all, like Tom said, there is a lot of uncertainty behind the scenes. Just Julian Ward, who was Michael Edwards' replacement, he's announced that he's leaving at the end of the season as well. So as it stands, they won't have a sporting director at the end of the season. And, you know, with the club likely to change hands in terms of ownership, it's a state of flux, isn't there? We don't know who's going to be looking after recruitment. I've been told that Jurgen Klopp will have a greater say in recruitment. So you've got a manager that might have a greater say. So, look, he knows that he needs midfield reinforcements. He's been looking for that for months now. He mentioned it in the summer. They ended up bringing Arthur Melo from Juventus, and that has been a disaster because he's not played. He's been injured all the time. So Liverpool need reinforcements in midfield, but ultimately it depends on which Champions League or Europa League competition they're in, if any, because as it stands right now, they're struggling to get in the top four. They might have to beat Real Madrid to have a chance of winning the Champions League. So if Liverpool aren't in the Champions League, it really, really impacts on their prospects of signing Jude Bellingham, because Bellingham, first of all, will want to be in the Champions League. And secondly, Liverpool need the Champions League finances to be able to sign a player like Jude Bellingham. So everything depends now on which competition they're in and how they progress from now until the end of the season. Now, in terms of what they've brought in, obviously Gakpo is the sign they've made, and it was a surprise to many people that they brought Gakpo in, because they are quite heavily overloaded up front. You know, when all the players are fit, where are they going to play? There's 5 or 6 players that will want to play every week, even if you take Firmino out of the equation. So you could argue that Liverpool have spent maybe too much time and money on strikers. Maybe they probably one forward too many, and they should really have invested in the midfield last summer. So they haven't done that, and now they've got a midfield that is in its 30s, is injury prone, and it doesn't have the legs anymore to do what Jurgen Klopp wants it to do. So that is a problem, and it's a problem that might not be solved in the summer, because we don't know who the owners are going to be, we don't know which competition they're going to be in, or how much money they've got. So they are uncertain times for Liverpool. They obviously have a priority list of targets with Bellingham at the top of it, but it depends which competition they're playing in. So we have to wait and see. This is a massive summer for Liverpool, because if they don't get it right, if they're in the wrong competition, if they miss out on Bellingham, then it is a rebuild. And while they're rebuilding, Arsenal are resurgent, Man United are resurgent, Chelsea, who knows what they'll be having spent, £500 million on players, and Man City aren't going away. So this could be a summer where, sorry Liverpool fans, but this could be the downturn for a few years, because they may have missed the boat on strengthening when they were ahead.
Well, you know what they say, Augie, misery does love company, and Liverpool probably doesn't have to look very far for some company in misery. They just have to look at the blue side of Merseyside. Let's talk Everton, because, wow, what is going on there? I mean, this has been quite a tumultuous week as well, getting rid of Frank Lampard, bringing in Sean Dyche, but not probably giving him enough time to make a signing. We're hearing reports of fans who want to go outside Goodison Park to protest the lack of signings. I know you're close with Everton as well. What are you hearing, Augie, of if they had even any plans for this January transfer window in place before getting rid of Frank Lampard?
Well, the plans they had were to let Anthony Gordon go and not replace him, which is ridiculous. They have been looking for forwards. That is no secret. They were looking at Che Adams at Southampton and couldn't get a deal done. A couple of other players, a couple of other targets were in the frame. Look, Everton's problem stretched back to the summer. They let Richarlison go to Tottenham and replace him with Neil Maupay from Brighton, which is, I'm not being funny, but that is, you're losing a Champions League player and replacing him with a player that lower league, Premier League level at best. I'm sorry, Maupay, but that is the reality. So they replaced their best goal scorer with a player that wasn't able to do it. Season's gone on. He's not scored the goals. Calvert-Lewin's been injured, so they're in the mess they're in. Now, I do have a lot of sympathy for the Everton scouts, because these guys, I know they submitted targets to their, to the bosses, and the targets haven't been signed, or the targets have been suggested and they've gone elsewhere because people above them. There's so much uncertainty at Everton as to who runs the club, who makes the decisions, and players are brought in that don't fit what the requirements are. So in many ways, if I'm an Everton fan, I'm thinking, well, at least they haven't wasted more money this window on players that don't fit the system or don't fit what they need. Maybe Sean Dyche's best advice to get what he's got. They've got a decent enough squad that Dyche gets more out of that squad and gets them playing as they should do, because, Everton in the past have made some pretty rash buys in January, or rash signings. Dele Alli a year ago, that has been a disastrous signing. He's not even there now. So maybe not signing a player has been a good thing for Everton, because Dyche can get the current ones on the training ground and try and get something out of them and hope that Dominic Calvert-Lewin stays fit. But obviously all clubs and all players want to sign a player in, or fans want to sign a player in January or a transfer window to get that boost. But sometimes signing the wrong player is the wrong thing to do. So maybe Everton have got away with it this time, that they just have to rely on Sean Dyche to get more out of the players than Lampard was.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult to see Everton struggling how they have been. And even Dominic Calvert-Lewin, as we said, so many people are excited about him. Hopefully he does get back to his best. But thanks so much there, Augie. And as we go from Augie in the north of England, we're going to go to the northeast now of the United States to chat to mi hermano peruano, LME, who absolutely is probably the only Aston Villa fan I know in the United States that's not actually from Birmingham. But anyways, LME, we're going to talk about Villa fully in just a bit. But first of all, I have to get your immediate reaction to the American Revolution going on at Leeds. They're calling it Leeds United States. Weston McKinney, now joining up with the likes of Tyler Adams, of course, and Jesse Marsch there. I don't even know if the ink on the paper of his contract is fully dry yet, but how do you feel about this one? Excited for it, another American in the Premier League, because, playing at Juventus and in the Serie A is also a massive honor, some would say.
Well, Alexis Nunes, first of all, I'm very surprised that you didn't start with your flex. You chatting to Ryan Reynolds a few days ago. Going from Hollywood royalty to Peruvian royalty. You're just a lucky gal these last few days, Alexis Nunes.
Someone had to do it. It was a tough job, but someone had to do it.
I love it. I love it. And yes, you are correct. I'm probably the only Aston Villa fan in New York City, the only Aston Villa fan that's Peruvian, born in England, that moved from England, from Peru to the United States. I'm definitely one of that. But let's go to Leeds United States of America, as you mentioned. Listen, if you're a USMNT fan, Leeds United is your team. It has to be in the Premier League. Unbelievable. You got Jesse Marsch as your manager, and now you got the trifecta of Brendan Aronson, Tyler Adams, and Weston McKennie. Alexis. And to your point, right, this is a player that's coming from Juventus, a very well-renowned, respected, big giant, though obviously in massive financial issues right now in Serie A. Mm-hmm. And now Weston McKennie is arriving to the Premier League. In my opinion, out of the three, he's the perfect one for Leeds United, because he is a box-to-box midfielder, somebody that's physical, very good in the air. He's very confident. He has a very good relationship with Tyler Adams, and that's going to do nothing but help Leeds United. So I'm not saying that it's a complete, game changer for Leeds. It's not like I'm going to say you're going to end up on top of the table. But if you're a USMNT fan, you're looking directly at this team, because Jesse Marsch, if anything, knows these players left, right, and center, and vice versa. So this is very good news for a Leeds side who, by the way, are relying on that energy. They're relying on that counter-attacking style. Weston McKennie takes all the boxes. Leeds United, States of America. Unbelievable.
I know. Well, as much as it's getting to Leeds United States of America, I know it's not enough for you to not support your boys from Aston Villa. So let's quickly talk about them then. Just talk to me about Villa's window then. What got you excited?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Alexis. Sometimes, and historically speaking, if you're a lifelong Villa fan like I am, you know that the January transfer window has almost been nothing but a headache and a nightmare, because almost always it's never really worked out. From overspending to spending the wrong way to try to figure it out, because ultimately we never really hired the proper manager that can help us elevate to what we used to be, which was a European team that made it to European competition. Well, guess what? The biggest acquisition is Unai Emery. He's the number one thing. In the history of the Premier League, Aston Villa has not had this kind of manager. And I'm including Martin O'Neill and my former favorites in Brian Little and John Gregory. We now have a manager who knows exactly what he wants. So with that, with a manager that knows exactly what he wants, he's not going to spend for the sake of spending. And so Villa fans on Twitter right now, you're probably reading a lot of frustration. Why are we not spending like the likes of even Forest or Leeds United or Bournemouth even? Why are we not spending? Well, I tell you what. Because Unai Emery only wants players that fit the system. And if they don't fit the system in January, then we'll wait till the summer. However, Alex Moreno, a very, very good player from Real Betis, he came in already earlier on. Jon Hader Duran, the Colombian 19-year-old, who's an absolute star, and he's going to have a very high ceiling for the Colombian national team. And, they went for Guendouzi as well from Marseille, but that wasn't to be. So Unai Emery's just being patient. And I believe that sometimes no action, Alexis, is better than too much action. I mean, look at Nottingham Forest. They're going to need to buy a warehouse, Alexis, to fit all those players. It's unbelievable. So Villa, I think, can be just, be relaxed, be calm. Just because you don't see action in the transfer window doesn't mean we're not elevating. Villa's 3 points from 6th in the Premier League, Alexis. That's something to celebrate. And the number one target we already have, and his name's Unai Emery.
Yeah, I love me some Unai Emery, but unfortunately, Unai is not a player. So if we're going to still talk about players, give me quickly your top 3 signings that you've seen so far from this January transfer window.
Okay, I'm going to give you my out-of-the-box transfers, okay? Not the ones that everybody's talking about. Enzo Fernandez for $7 billion. No, I don't want any of that. I'm going to give you my transfers that, we really have to think about. Wow, that's pretty interesting. Number one, I just mentioned it already. Jon Duran, 19-year-old Colombian. He came from a club in Colombia called Envigado, which, created the likes of James Rodriguez, Juanfer Quintero. He has a very high ceiling. Chicago Fire loved him. 19, lots of high ceiling. And because I'm so in love with my former Colombian star of Villa, Juan Pablo Angel, it's great to see a Colombian striker for Villa. So that's one. Number 2, Keylor Navas. It's done, Alexis. He's going to Nottingham Forest. The most famous, popular Costa Rican athlete, the most disrespected goalkeeper in the history of the game, now 100%. Is coming to the Premier League. I'm so excited about that. Costa Rica and City Ground. That's just going to be amazing. And then the other one, the last one, is Nathan Opoku, the Ghanaian 21-year-old who played USL soccer. That's the division below MLS. He played USL 2. Then he played in a college in Kentucky. And then he went to Syracuse University in the northeast of New York, and they won the NCAA tournament. Guess what? Leicester City just got him. He's gone straight to Belgium for a deal to, with the sister team there to get going before he enters the Premier League. That's like a movie in the making, Alexis, to come to all the way from Ghana to the United States, and now Leicester City, the Premier League later on. That's amazing. Those are my top 3 transfer stories that pretty much are going to go unnoticed, and they shouldn't.
Perfect. Elemi, siempre un placer. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much. Love your love for Villa and, of course, now Leeds United States. And sticking with Leeds, like I said, Weston McKinney, he is the newest acquisition there. And our very own Mark Ogden got to speak to him as he arrived at Ellen Road to sign that contract.
Yeah, no. So this, I want to say like 2 weeks ago was like the first initial interest, and for me, I looked at it and I was thinking like, oh, okay, well that could be good for me because Leeds fit my style. Leeds, they identify with everything that I identify with, and I have 2 teammates here that, one of them I feel like me and him kind of play similar in a way, and he fits in well. So obviously I made my calls to Tyler, I made my calls to Brendan, to some of my people that I trust, and asked them about it, and everyone's like, you fit right in. So yeah, my whole decision was based on if I fit in the system or not, and can I thrive there, and can I be myself and play my style of football. And obviously it was like a cherry on top of the cake having them here as well.
US Men's national team player Weston McKinney there signing for Leeds United. Right, we've got Gab and we've got Jules back because during that time...
show you stuff, come on.
We got the big boys back because some serious news has broken there. I almost don't know which one to start with first. Let's start with Enzo Fernandez, don't we? Who wants to tackle it? Because it sounds like it's official now. Gab?
It's done. Deal through 2031, I believe. 8.5 years deal. As is customary now at Chelsea.
At Chelsea, yeah. I wish I had an 8.5 year deal. You guys have 8.5 year deals.
Only Gab.
Only Gab. We need to talk to Mickey Mouse.
I was thinking, Jules, he is the most expensive midfielder in history, unless I'm forgetting somebody.
No, he is.
But by some margin as well, right? Because it's still Pogba who'd be second, right?
I believe so, yeah. And he's the most expensive player in the Premier League ever.
And that price tag haunted Pogba. So I'm wondering how he's going to carry this one. The price tag's still haunting Jack Grealish at City. So, but still, like I said, this is definitely one for the future and definitely one that Chelsea fans should be excited about.
Very excited. For me, he's a game changer. We can debate on who's going to play next to him, and he also needs the right player next to him. He can't just, change everything on his own. But he's a wonderful talent. He's 22 years of age. You've got him for another 10 years at least. And he's very special, I think. And you pay for that. You pay because he's special. You pay a lot of money. 130 million is a lot of money for a player like you said who cost 10 million from River 6 months ago. But he's a World Cup winner.
Yep.
I
know that still hurts you to say, but it's okay.
I can't remember who they beat in the final.
Oh, we'll pull up some clips soon for you if you want
it's
to refresh
okay.
it.
But good luck to him. I think again, it's a crazy transfer window for Chelsea again.
Yeah.
But it might be the most important of all the signings that they've made.
And I mean, of course, we know that Manchester City were also allegedly interested in him. We heard Real Madrid because they thought that he was just a like-for-like replacement for a certain Luka Modric. And I mean, I stop before I try to compare anyone to Luka Modric, Gab. But is that how special everyone's hoping? Does he give you whiffs of Luka?
Honestly?
Yeah.
No. I mean, we can only go by what we've, not only are there different skill sets, but, I think you have to evaluate him on, and I think Chelsea would have evaluated him on training, on the potential, on what he will produce, and for how long he will produce it. Because the reality, 6 months with Benfica, they've been a tremendous run and whatever else, but and he's been a big part of that. But that alone doesn't warrant 50 million, let alone 100 million, right? Played well for Argentina in a couple of games at the World Cup, didn't start the World Cup as well. We can go back. Is Scaloni a fool? He didn't realize he had 130 million, and instead he serves up Paredes and this other junk in midfield. No disrespect to Leandro Paredes, but that's kind of how I feel about it right now. So, we have to say they're seeing stuff. They're seeing obviously his age, and that's huge what Jules mentioned. But they're seeing is this guy has other levels that he can go to, and he will grow into that. Let's not forget, 6 months in Europe at a new club. I mean, I always love to bring up Robert Pires. Remember how terrible Robert Pires was in his first year at Arsenal? And then look at what he became. And he was only hopping across a channel. This guy's going across a continent and changing 2 leagues twice in the space of a few months.
And I mean, Chelsea, it's just funny because, of course, we're saying you're hearing the length of time on this contract, but you're wondering how long Graham Potter will have to work with this, because there's still a big question mark, of course, surrounding him. Is this a signing that you kind of throw in quickly to kind of help the Chelsea case and help the Potter case right now, Jules?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for that amount of money, you got
to play him now. Next game.
Play him now and make the most of him. But more seriously, I think he can be a game changer. I think we said from the beginning, they needed something in midfield anyway.
Yeah.
Because Georginio had left, but even with Georginio, they were light. They could not find the right formula. Now you need to find who is best next to him, whether that's Zakaria, Kovacic, Conte when he comes back. Whatever you want to find, Mounts, whatever options, and whoever you partner him with has to be the right one. But at least you've got this world class. He's world class. I'm sorry, I know it's a lot of money, but for me, he's world class. He's one of the best in his positions already. I know it's only the Portugal League, but the numbers of his first 6 months in the Portugal League are out of this world.
Yeah.
And I saw him in the Champions League because they were in PSG's group. I saw him bossing the game against PSG. I saw him bossing the games against Juventus. So I've got no doubt that he's going to be a great success. And if I was a Chelsea fan, I would be super excited.
But you are a PSG fan.
Yeah, and I'm gutted.
You're gutted.
Because we're crap right now. And, that's
We've
one
got
that we're not going to sign.
Haven't you?
We've got a signing too. That's true.
Exactly. Let's talk about that signing. Ziyech, speaking of Chelsea.
Where's he going to play? Tell me.
Jules, those are your boys. Nobody knows them better than you.
So in my wildest dreams.
A man who has Messi, a man who has Neymar is moaning about,
No, listen. In my wild dreams, and I've got wild dreams all the time, but in my wild dreams, I'm dreaming of a flat 4-4-2 with Ziyech on the right, Neymar on the left, and then Messi and Kylian up front. I don't know who's doing the defending. I don't really care. I don't know who plays the two in midfield. I don't care. I don't care.
Soler and Verratti in midfield, and you're sorted.
You and I can play as a double pivot if they want to. I dream of that front four, which is not going to happen, but it gives you options. He's better than Sarabia, who's a dreadful footballer anyway. So at least you've improved your squad. Him and Hakimi are like brothers. They play together, obviously, from Morocco. So that's a good
link
thing.
Up there.
Yeah. So it's
Mbappe's got another BFF.
It's a loan. You pay a little fee for the loan. But you know what? I love Hakim Ziyech.
So it's a loan with no option to buy, though. Yeah. Gab, what do you think of that?
I mean, I think if you're like, we have to learn the language in this one, right? There's no option to buy. If Ziyech is tremendous between now and the end of the season, I think he's going to have a year, 2 years left at the end. 2025. So he's got 2 years of wages back. If Paris Saint-Germain says, hey, Chelsea, we'll take him and we'll offer you nothing or $1 million. I think, or not $1 million, but it's going to be a very small fee.
Yeah, 20.
I think it's going to be substantially less given his age. And well, it's going to depend whatever financial situation Chelsea find themselves in. But clearly, if he doesn't fit in Chelsea's plans, if he's making a lot of money, and he's making a lot of money at Chelsea, these loans with no, with no option to buy or fixed fee, they don't really mean anything. Right? If he does it at Paris Saint-Germain, if Gaultier's still around and wants him, or if a new manager says, I love Ziyech, he's going to stay.
All right, well, I'm just looking at our ticker right there. Just about 15 minutes left until the window closes. I'm trying to get everyone excited. Last minute deals, we love it.
Nothing less.
I do everything last minute.
Nothing left to do there.
But we do have to talk about Arsenal, and we do have to talk about Spurs, the two North London clubs. So let's start off with the Gunners. Like I said, we're going to talk a bit more now about Georginio, now that that's been official. But from him now, in an Arsenal perspective, how does he fit in? Does he fit in automatically, and where?
I think he slots very well in that holding midfielder role, who is very important for Arteta. Partey has done really well in almost a different style, but Georginio is for me one of the most intelligent players in this league, without a doubt. That's why Arteta loves him. He's such an Arteta signing in many respects. He's got like a manager's brain in his head. He would understand everything that Arteta asks him to do. He will lead by example. He's press resistant. You can pass him the ball under pressure. He's made mistakes at times with Chelsea in a team that was not really functioning well this season. Arsenal is functioning really, really well. And for me, it's just, I can understand why Arsenal fans could be a bit underwhelmed, considering the Caicedo's links and all of that, maybe. But they have to think in how much Georginio can bring to this squad, and I think he can bring a lot.
I think you have to trust in Arteta a little bit, right?
100%.
Because we said it's a good deal because it's 18 months, but it's also between wages and amortization. You are taking a lot on board. I think next season he'll end up costing them around about 12 million on their books or something like that. So this is Arteta saying, like, this is how I want to spend your money, Mr. Kroenke. Jules, I have visions of, I think back to when he was at Napoli. They scored so many goals, the little clipped ball into the path of Insigne.
Yeah.
Saka can go and do that. Saka doing it from the right side, coming in. He can hit balls like that. He can give you a slightly different dimension if the opponents park the bus. So
he can control the tempo, which I think is what they wanted. Partey can do it and has done it this season, but I don't think it's natural to him. Partey naturally goes forward with the ball. That's what he looks for. And if you look at Partey's number this season in terms of progressive carries, progressive passes, it's higher up. I think in Georginio, you get a controller of the tempo, the pausa, and when to slow the game down, when to accelerate it. And I think you can push Partey a little bit higher up for the Xhaka role, for example, even the Odegaard role, and you've got Georginio behind. I think that can work too, and I think they kind of needed something like that a little bit.
The one question might be is, as we said many times, you have the most settled 11 in the league, right? Same 7 guys have started every single game and so on. You can say, all right, he's the 12th man, or is he? Or do you feel that, are we going to see a rotation? And if they do, who misses out? Because you mentioned Partey, and obviously Partey, I think, has missed 3 starts this season. It may happen again, but could we see would a Partey Jorginho midfield work when Xhaka's unavailable?
Yeah, I think that can work too. Yeah.
Would a Partey Xhaka Jorginho midfield work when Odegaard's not available?
Yeah, maybe, I think as well. I think Arteta likes the left foot of Xhaka on that kind of triangle with Martinelli and Zinchenko, but Partey can fit in there too.
All right. Well, I suppose Arsenal fans then could definitely be pleased as pie with their transfer window and the way things are going. It's a great transfer window.
And Trossard, sorry.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Those 3
I think it's a great window for Arsenal, definitely. So let's talk about Spurs, though, their rivals, because Spurs definitely always trying to keep pace with the red side of North London. Pedro Porro, the Spaniard at Sporting, that is who they seem to have their eyes on, guys, with, like I said, almost 10 minutes left to go. What are you hearing here for this one? What's the likelihood of it happening?
I think it's very, very, very likely.
Siri wanted to chime in.
What is Siri? No. I think a lot of it had to do with Hector Bellerin moving. The understanding is that deal is just about done, if not already official. So he's here to sign, and I think it's somebody that they felt that they needed, given the issues Emerson had. Doherty's already gone, so it's kind of cleared the way for him on that right hand side.
All right, perfect. We're going to put you guys on a quick little break there then, because like I said, almost about 10 minutes to go, and I believe we're going to be joined by Sam Marsden all the way in Barcelona. We're so jealous because I'm sure it's not as freezing cold there, Sam, as it is here in your own home country. Let's talk about La Liga. Let's talk about Barcelona, specifically Julian Araujo, Galaxy to Barca. It seems like Barca wanted to double up on Araujo. I remember when I saw this and I was absolutely panicking because I thought it meant Ronald Araujo to LA Galaxy. And I was like, no, what's going on here? But what's the latest for this one?
Yeah, that would have been quite a turn up for the books, wouldn't it? Ronald Araujo swapping Barcelona for LA Galaxy, following Ricky Puig perhaps in the January transfer window. But no, like you say, it's the Galaxy right back Julian Araujo, who's going to be joining Barcelona. We're still waiting for the official announcement. Barcelona have got a Telegram channel where they've just released it and then deleted it. So it's still not quite ready to be made official. We're waiting to find the structure of the deal has changed throughout the day, but we're expecting that to be confirmed well within the next 10 minutes with the deadline approaching. That it will be in the end a permanent deal, but structured in a weird way because Barca can't do deals in a normal way where they pay 2 million for a percentage of his rights, perhaps, and then another 2 million at another stage for 40%, and it's cancelable as well at a certain time. So it's not a straightforward deal, but I think this just protects the Galaxy a little bit in a little way, because obviously if Barca did this deal where it was a loan with an option to buy, perhaps they would risk sort of losing money and having Araujo back at some point without having made any money from this deal. It's a signing primarily for the B team and the first team at Barcelona. He'd be registered with the reserve team. That's who's making the announcement through their Telegram channel, who play in the third division in Spain. But it's going to be very much around the first team because Barca have no natural right back now. Hector Bellerin has joined Sporting Club in Portugal today. So they have, they've been playing with Sergio Roberto, who's obviously played a lot of right back in recent years, but he's a midfielder. They've been playing with Jules Koundé there. They've been playing with the other Araujo there, Ronald Alejandro Balde's played there, but none of them are natural right backs. So there is a spot for a right back in this Barca side if they can take it. I still expect Xavi to stick with the other options, but he's going to be taking a look at Araujo, who's going to be in and around the first team dynamic, but perhaps those first sort of few weeks to get some games with the B team when he gets there.
Well, luckily, Barcelona didn't have to look too far for a special man that they do have more in an attacking role, and that's Gavi. Let's talk about him because he has been kind of a little bit in the headlines. He officially got registered. There was some drama as to whether Barca were going to be able to register him. Sam, just give us a bit more on that.
Yeah, that's been the big talking point or the big battle of deadline day or this January in Barcelona, really, because they've been, with their financial problems, they've not been able to add to their squad, and they've not even until today been able to register a contract which was agreed with Gavi last September. They tried to register it last month. He's now registered with the first team, but until today he was registered as a youth team player. La Liga rejected his registration last week. Javier Tebas explaining the league president that it was because it's a multi-year contract and Barcelona don't have the salary space beyond this season to commit to that contract. Barca have taken that to a commercial court here in Catalonia, and they received a favourable ruling today, which has obliged La Liga to register Gavi. He's taken the number 6 shirt, once of course worn by Iniesta and Xavi, with Pedri and him now wearing 6 and 8 to strike up that sort of new emerging generation midfield combination, if you will. And La Liga say they're going to review the case and appeal it. So there's still the chance that he could be deregistered. So this is something that's not going to end today, even though he is now officially, for the time being, a first-team Barcelona player. And their biggest signing today, because the interesting point in the Barca statement was this idea that if he wasn't registered by 11:59 today, before the window closed, there would have been the possibility that he could have left for free, which is something that Xavi said today he didn't expect to happen. Obviously, Gavi's come through the academy. He's committed to the club, but it's something the club were obviously worried about, to take this to a commercial court and make sure it got through today.
All right. Thank you so much, as always, Sam. Hopefully we come out there to visit you in Barca soon. I'm off to Madrid tomorrow, but Barcelona, man, I'm missing it.
Give it a couple of months. It's still a bit cold.
Oh, don't tell me that. Oh, but back to our freezing cold studio. Tom Hamilton has nipped back in. We're going to talk some WSL, aren't we, Tom? Sophie Lawson's also going to be joining us in just a little bit, but what a massive headline that almost sent me jumping into the Thames as well, because you know how much I do love me some Manchester United, of course, both the men and women. Alessia Russo, Euro winner, absolute star. I mean, her and Ella Toone, it's a duo that we all need. But then came the rumors of her being linked to Arsenal. Arsenal ready to break the internet, break the bank for her. Manchester United, of course, rejecting that. But Tom, this one at least caught me by surprise.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's such an interesting move on so many different levels. You've got Arsenal clearly trying to, in the short term, look at their forward resources without Miedema, without Mead, who are both injured, looking to really bring in a statement signing. You've got Russo, whose contract's up at the end of the season at United, still hasn't yet re-signed, no sign of potentially a new contract there. So you've got one of England's brightest talents, had an astonishing summer, was the super sub but scored some incredibly important goals. And on so many levels, this is showing, we've already seen Kira Walsh since those Euros. She went for 400 grand or so to Barca. This is now, from what we understand, is going to be, would have been a record transfer close to sort of 450-ish. But United have turned it down. So they clearly are banking on being able to negotiate contracts with Lessie before the end of the season and ensure that they don't end up letting her go for nothing. But you can imagine that just about every single top team in Europe will be looking to try and secure that signature if indeed they can't agree a contract. But for the meantime, she'll stay a Man United player. Arsenal, will still be looking to try and find other ways to cope without that incredible duo up front. But it was a really interesting 24 hours, I think, for the WSL.
It has been indeed, which probably means that our very own Sophie Lawson must have been massively busy. Sophie, let me bring you in on this one, because like I said, this nearly broke the internet, broke my heart too, and probably a lot of Manchester United fans' hearts too. But now we wonder, where does this leave Man United? Because it would have been more than just a pretty penny and good business, I suppose, for them from a financial standpoint. And then where does this leave Arsenal? Because as Tom said, with some big name injuries out, they are kind of struggling. This would have definitely helped to smooth things over there. So where does it leave the two clubs?
Well, for United, I think it was so important for them to hold on to Russo, because she contributes so much to that attack. And as you said, her partnership with Ella Toon is fantastic. It kind of helps them tick over an attack. And I think if they'd lost Russo, then it's not even about going for the title. It's, can they get into Europe next season? Can they finish top 3? So in keeping Russo, they should be able to secure Champions League football, which then will always make them a more attractive prospect if they can't hold on to players like Russo. And we do think some players will be leaving in the summer. Maybe Russo's up there. We'll have to see. She did reportedly turn down a deal that they tabled last year. So that's one to watch as it comes to Arsenal. As Tom said, they're without Miedema and Mead, who kind of, there's a wonderful stat that last season they had a hand in about 66% of Arsenal's goals. And immediately when we came back at the start of the year, when they played Chelsea, they needed those goals because they ended up conceding late. They dropped points, and you're thinking, well, if Beth or Viv had been on, they would have won. So Arsenal need to find goals from elsewhere, but they've made a couple of really good midfield signings this window in Victoria Pelova and Kathleen Kuhl, and they record Judo Kirosh from loan from Everton. So they should be finding goals there. Is it going to be enough? We don't know. We've got some new players that have to gel. But again, we're thinking Arsenal, they're going to manage to finish top 3. They're already in a cup semi-final. But it's moving forward. It's looking forward. Arsenal have shown they've had some interest in Russo, and they're willing to spend big. And that's the type of thing that could catch our eye and say, well, if you want to do that, maybe if I don't sign with United, But also we know that Mead and Miedema are going to come back. Should be early next season, provided they come back from their injuries, fine. So, did Arsenal need something more permanent or something more temporary? We'll have to see. But we're shaping up into a nice sort of fun second half of the season either way.
Definitely. Thank you so much then, Sophie. I'm just looking at the time right now, and we have less than 2 minutes before the transfer window shuts for this January. Tom, let me just throw it to you quickly on this one. In terms of WSL or just some of the other leagues as well, I know you're across in women's football. What other transfer probably caught your eye?
So I'm going to go for Jordan Nobbs. I think that transfer to Aston Villa is absolutely inspired. A brilliant player, World Cup at the end of the year as well. This move gives her a chance to really play her way into Serena Vigman's plans for that World Cup. She's already made a promising start. Lucy Staniforth there as well. But I think that recruitment of Nobbs is absolutely inspired. And Rachel Daly there, standing fourth. They're building a really nice sort of, England international spine to that team.
All right. Well, I think it's almost time to wrap things up here, but not before we can confirm yet another signing. This is for you, Spurs fans. Pedro Porro from Sporting Lisbon is definitely a done deal. They have confirmed it. Spurs tweeting it out. He will join on loan, but the deal includes an obligation to buy for 45 million euros. That's about 40 million pounds this summer. So Spurs, they're finally getting the business there over the line. I mean, literally only just. So the window is closing in just about 30 seconds. Thank you, all of you, for tuning in and hanging with us over this last hour. We know we absolutely love counting down the minutes for this deadline day. Another January transfer window has come and gone. We hope that your clubs made you proud, did some good signings. If not, hang in there, guys. There's still summer. It's only a couple of months away. But for now, that's all she wrote for this deadline day. I'm Alexis Nunes. Thanks to all of our journalists for joining us and everyone once again for watching. And we'll see you in the next one.